understand it. If those people who are independent thinkers are willing to argue with each other and they triangulate and they think you should do something, you probably should do it.
Right.
But if they're at odds, you get to hear the disagreements. Why is it? It's the quickest way to get an education.
Yes.
So you raise your probabilities of being right. So I learned that one of the smartest things I could do is find the smartest people who disagreed with me and triangulate. And so when we came to the financial crisis in 2008, it was because we had this view that was very different from the rest of the world about the financial crisis.
Yes.
But to have that independent thinking and to do that triangulation. So it's humility. In other words, the humility, the fear of being wrong. I have a saying, if you don't worry, you need to worry. And if you worry, you don't need to worry, right? You don't need to, if you don't worry, you're probably going to get into trouble.
Yes.
And if you worry, you'll probably
do the things that are necessary.
So exactly.
Yes,
and so that change in mindset and being able to draw the best out of everybody so I can make the best decisions, not being attached to what I think.
Yes.
That's why I say I think it's one of the greatest tragedies of mankind. One of the greatest tragedies of mankind, because it so easily can be rectified. If people can separate their attachments for what they have in their head and put them out and stress test them properly, they will raise their probabilities of being right. This is key, has been key for me.
I think, for those people watching, there's so many business owners out there, small and medium, big businesses. If you're watching, I always talk about the fact that owners tend to put themselves in a position where they try to make 12 decisions. And I always say, get 12 of your best people and make one decision, because the crowd decision is always going to be better. But why don't people do that? Why do we have this push that we all think that we have to be the source, we have to have the answer, and we have to be, never fail, when it's just not realistic? What do you think that is in the human psyche?
Well,
and how have you balanced it?
I've studied why this is. I've asked neuroscientists, I've asked psychologists why it is, and they say that there's two reasons for it. Partially it's neuroscience, and partially it's environment and habit. And it can be broken. So the neuroscience part of it is that deep-seated in our brains is a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is the fight or flight part of the brain.
Survival.
And there's a little bit of an instinct that if there's disagreement, that is conflict. And it produces an emotional reaction. There's a tendency to do that. The other part of it is the world rewards being right. In other words, you start with the smart kid who gets the A's on his test and so on. And then they don't go through their failure. You know that the best learning comes from failure, right? But if people become embarrassed about not knowing. We're in a society that operates that way.
Yeah.
And if you can actually teach how great failure can be as a learning thing, it's so terrific. So it's a combination of habit and instincts. But I've learned that in 18 months, people can be totally different. We call it the getting to the other side. They go through this, of course, experience of everybody speaking frankly with each other and figuring out in an idea meritocratic way what's true, including what your weaknesses are. Do you want to know your weaknesses? Is it good?
Yes.
When you go through that and people want to, so that they know how to compensate for those weaknesses, then they can move beyond that. And so what we found in a period of 18 months of doing that exercise, most people can get to the other side. Then they don't want to operate the old way.
Right.
Because, first of all, they don't want people not to be straight with them.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to know what I really think
I
of
don't
you?
want to talk about my back.
Do you want to know? Okay, so you ask people, they do. Their intellectual part of them does. Their emotional part needs to have a little bit of adjusting to that.
Yeah.
And so we go through that process. And it changes everything, because great collective decision making with the smartest people who are willing to disagree is going to make you most likely to be right.
Yeah. You're learning right now the most fundamental important distinction that has guided this man's life after going so much failure to have so much success. And every business person, any human being that wants to make better